Overcome every obstacle, accept adversity, face hardship, and thrive. See dreams and take them. After sinking its claws into a top seed, Kentucky turns its gaze to another upset. A top Sooners team that eyes a second consecutive Final Four. The Seminoles have flourished in tight tests, but have no margin for error against a Huskies team that lets no one hang around. 2 places remain in San Antonio. Tonight, they are for the taking.
And we begin in Dayton tonight and find out if the UConn freight train keeps on rolling as we welcome you to the NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One. It's Florida State and UConn. The winner earns a trip to San Antonio. Tina Charles, Maya Moore, and UConn looking for win number 76 in a row and their 3rd straight Final Four. On Sunday, UConn got 16 points from Charles. Maya Moore connected for 25 points in 20 minutes, and UConn beat Iowa State by 38 in their closest game in the tournament. Florida State, a much tougher battle with Mississippi State, but Courtney Ward's layup secured a 74-71 win. Well, Brittany Griner and Baylor, they've already knocked out Duke. Stanford won at the buzzer and broke the hearts of the Xavier Musketeers. They're in the Final Four, and the last 2 spots are up for grabs tonight. Hi again, everyone. I'm Bob Wischusen alongside Stephanie White, and Rebecca Lobo will join us in just a moment. UConn is quite simply a freight train, and no one has been able to get this train even remotely off the tracks. Can Florida State do it tonight?
Well, I think Florida State has an opportunity. They can put up big numbers offensively, and they're going to need that tonight. And it's got to start with Jacinta Monroe down low. In the Star Watch, we've got her highlighted. She's been terrific down the stretch for Florida State, but she needs to establish herself early offensively in the paint. And for Connecticut, it's Tina Charles. Big East Player of the Year, had 16 of her 24 in the second half. The first time these 2 teams met, I expect her to go right at Jacinta Monroe to start this ballgame.
Let's take a look at our Capital One starting lineups. First of all, for Florida State, the ball tonight will be in the hands of Courtney Ward.
The floor general for Sue Semrau's team. She's been big down the stretch as well. She's got to control the tempo and take care of the basketball.
Kalena Green has not been as good as expected for UConn.
She hasn't put up bigger numbers offensively, but she really is the unsung hero, the vocal leader for this Connecticut team.
Well, if it's possible, Maya Moore has been even better than expected, and Rebecca Lobo has more.
Bob, Maya Moore has been outstanding during the tournament. She's set the tone early, and she's shooting 70% from the 3-point line. Why is she playing so well? Well, simply, she's not overthinking the game. She is just playing. And Coach Auriemma has taken a different approach with her as well. He's told her to just go out and play. He said, during the regular season, everything she does, I kill her. In the NCAA tournament, I overlook everything she doesn't do well. I don't even comment on it. Bob, whatever Coach is doing or not doing, it's working pretty well.
Well, Rebecca, you played for Gino Auriemma, so you know the mind games have led him to 6 national championships and 732 wins, looking for Final Four number 11. Standing in the way, Florida State. And pretty much every other team that has stood in the way of UConn has been out of the game by halftime. Let's see if Florida State can control tempo early and stay in this game with the Huskies.
Well, I think it's important for Florida State to really key in on their transition defense, but offensively they've got to be very selective about when they run and when they don't.
Sue Semrau's team has the arrow, so they will take possession for the first time. 20 wins, 4 out of the last 6 years for a program that was struggling before Sue Semrau took over 13 years ago. 6 straight trips to the NCAA tournament, but this is the first Elite 8 in school history. Inside to Monroe, squares up on Charles. Knocked out of bounds by Tiffany Hayes. 9 seconds to shoot for the Noles.
Well, Kalena Green playing off of Angel Gray, really going to pinch in that post on Jacinta Monroe.
If Florida State scores the first basket, it's a story. 3,000 minutes of basketball for UConn, and they have been behind by 96 minutes total during this streak. Towards the end of the shot clock, Ward has to throw one up, and it sails out of bounds.
Well, you can see Sue Summerall right there telling her team to be smart, understanding shot clock situations. When you're playing against the Connecticut defense, you've got to find a way to get yourself high percentage looks. Florida State coming out man-to-man.
Moore freed up on the baseline and picks up right where she left off on Sunday.
Well, Angel Gray, the defensive stopper for Florida State, is going to have her hands full with Maya Moore. She's got to keep her from getting the basketball.
Monroe can't hit. Moore the rebound. Doty floats one through the lane. And a good box out by Monroe on Tina Charles. Ray tripped up on her way to the basket. A turnover, and here comes Kalena Green. Cruises in for two.
And that's what you can't afford to do. You can't give Connecticut easy opportunities. You've got to take care of the basketball. Don't allow them to get easy runouts in transition.
Harvin lets one go, and that one hit the backboard first. Alicia Harvin had 21 points against Mississippi State on Sunday. She rushed that one.
And right now, Florida State settling for those long outside jumpers. They've got to find a way to move the basketball one side of the floor to the other, get easy looks.
The offensive rebound by Maya Moore sets up the drive by Caroline Doty, and she'll go to the line.
But right here, UConn defense just getting a hand on the ball. Defense creating offense. You cannot turn the ball over 4 scores. And Maya Moore has started off this tournament so well and so hot early in the first half. And she does it again, knocking down the baseline jumper.
Maya Moore named to the All-American team today for the 3rd time in 3 years. And one of her teammates on that team, Tina Charles, there on the right. Caroline Doty hits a couple. And Florida State, the same position that the other 3 teams that UConn has played in the tournament have found themselves in early on, trying to dig out of a hole.
The help defense for UConn on the penetration. Everybody drops to the level of the ball. They get a deflection. They might not get the steal, but the team defense. Florida State very stagnant offensively. The ball stays on one side of the floor. It's 1 or 2 passes and a shot. They've got to find a way to punch the defense. It can be a penetrating pass. It can be off of the dribble, but they cannot play around at the three-point line.
That's what Harvin did there, hoisting up a contested 3. Lucky it was deflected, so it stays with the Noles. Harvin gets a step on the baseline, fades away over Charles. Offensive rebound, Chastity Clayton, but she lost it out of bounds. UConn beats Southern in the opening round, 95-39. Temple, 90-36, and Iowa State, 74-36. They have won by an average of 49.3 points per game in their 3 wins so far in the tournament. Charles on the move, and she'll go to the free throw line. They were leading in the 2nd round of the tournament, Temple, at halftime, 55-12, and that's against a pretty good Temple team.
And they shot 77.8% from the field in the first half, a 33-5 opening run in that game as well. But, you know, Connecticut just comes out there on a mission. They're focused. They understand what it takes and what they have to do. And when you play against a team like Connecticut, you have to expect them to come right at you from the tip.
Clayton was called for the foul, her first. The thing that amazes me is that singular focus that you talked about every single night. They never have a bad game.
And they pay attention to detail, and it's not just on a game-to-game basis, it's a possession-by-possession basis.
Finally on the board, Florida State, Chastity Clayton, the freshman, gets a turnaround.
Chastity Clayton has struggled yesterday in the game against Mississippi State. They're going to need her athleticism. They're going to need her offensive production.
Maya Moore called for a foul. A little too aggressive with the screen.
Number 23, Maya Moore, that's her first.
Chastity Clayton gets good position down low and uses her athleticism to just elevate over the stretched arm of Tina Charles. It's a tough turnaround jump shot.
For the Seminoles,
Alexa DeLuzio and Christian Honeycutt come on for the first time for Florida State, replacing Alicia Harvin. Angel Gray sits down as well. Clayton, a pull-up, knocks down another. Back-to-back buckets by Chastity Clayton.
One of the things that Sue Semrau said about Chastity Clayton is just she's such a freak of an athlete. She can match anybody's athleticism, and she's showing you why early.
Moore cuts back door and draws another foul.
You saw Connecticut working on that play and shoot around today, and Maya Moore does such a good job of selling her cut. She comes like she's coming out. Watch the defender right here. Watch what happens. Angel Gray wants to keep her from getting the basketball. They clear out the weak side. Maya Moore goes back door and gets an opportunity at the foul line.
Courtney Ward came over and committed her first foul. Moore now with 3. The Big East Player of the Year, her first 2 years in the conference. Tina Charles was Big East Player of the Year this season. 2 of her 3 games in the NCAA tournament, more points than minutes played. And she has now been in double figures in 109 of her 113 career games at UConn. Monroe straight away. Doesn't get the roll. Elena Green the rebound.
When you see what the Connecticut defense forces you to do, take contested jump shots, Florida State needs to be more patient offensively, move the basketball.
Tina Charles can't hit the sky hook. It rolls to Moore. Buckets again for Maya Moore.
And Gino said Sunday after the game that when Maya Moore's in one of these zones, she's just a lot of fun to watch, and she certainly is, not thinking and just playing.
DeLuzio has a 3.
three-point basket.
Alexa DeLuzio averaging 10 points a game in the NCAA tournament. She hit a big 3 against St. John's to cut that lead to 2. She has that range, and if Florida State wants to contend, they've got to be able to knock down those looks.
Moore pulls up again.
The answer.
She has a lot of them.
She sure does.
Monroe lost it on the way down, and a foul called. When we come back, thoughts from Stephanie White about the Final Four you will not want to miss. Early on, UConn with a 1-possession lead. The Riverwalk will be the scene next week. Actually coming this weekend for the Final Four on the women's side in San Antonio. And one of these 2 teams will be joining Brittany Griner and Baylor. Nears a triple-double with block shots included. Stanford gets the coast-to-coast buzzer beater to pull off the last-second shocker against Xavier. And trying to get there for the 11th time in school history is UConn. Knocking it away underneath from Jacinta Monroe is Caroline Doty. Back the other way. Charles an offensive rebound. 3 on the way, no good by Hayes. And a foul called against UConn.
If that's on Maya Moore, that could be number 2.
It is Maya Moore.
Team's third.
Maya's mom on hand, Catherine Moore, who not only raised an unbelievable basketball player, but an unbelievable student as well. She was ESPN The Magazine Academic All-American this year. A 3.7 GPA for Maya Moore to go along with arguably being the best basketball player in the country.
Maya Moore considering a Rhodes Scholarship application as well. I think Jacinta Monroe has got to be more involved offensively. She can change the landscape of the game on defense, but she's got to be more involved. And Maya Moore, he's going to leave her in with 2 fouls, and that's why.
And then Courtney Ward travels on the inbound. So an unforced error in the backcourt as Caroline Doty jumped up and surprised Ward and created the turnover, but this is Moore's sweet spot in that corner.
And watch, it's just a catch and shoot. There's no hesitation. There's no thinking about it. She knows she's in a zone. She feels it, and her teammates do a good job of recognizing and finding her.
I guess inside the gym is her sweet spot. Down the lane, through traffic, a bit of a bump, no call. Angel Gray comes back for Florida State.
And I think if you're playing Maya Moore, you have to force her to put the ball on the floor more often than not. You don't see her do it as often as just take those jump shots.
Sierra Brevard blocked inside by Tina Charles.
Right here, Sierra Brevard gets good position, but Tina Charles able to use that athleticism. 8 seconds left on the shot clock.
And Harvin a long way from the basket. Needs to get busy. A handoff to Gray. Do they realize the shot clock's winding down? Deluzio does. Offensive rebound. Slipping inside is Harvin. Lost the ball on the way up. Tiffany Hayes draws a bump, and she'll go to the free throw line. The NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One continues Sunday night on ESPN. It's the Final Four. 2 national semifinals beginning at 7 p.m. Coverage begins with the NCAA Women's Final Four special at 6:30. ESPN is the exclusive home of the NCAA Women's Championship. Cassidy Clayton comes back on, and now Maya Moore with 2 fouls will sit down as Kylie McLaren takes her place. To me, the only way you will ever beat UConn is if you can somehow get Moore and maybe Charles as well into foul trouble. They're the 2 best players in the country. You have to keep one of them off the floor.
And we saw Maya Moore get in foul trouble early in the first half in the last game, but what she does when she comes back out is she plays so smart. Now Gino's changing it up defensively, going to that zone. 11 points already.
A push called on Tiffany Hayes. Let's check in with Rebecca.
You guys remember Stanford was the only team to have a lead on UConn earlier this season. Maya Moore picked up 2 early fouls in that game. About this point of the game, she came out. That's when Stanford went on its run. So what did Coach Roy Amadou? He put her back in. We'll see what happens here.
And Rebecca, just like Stephanie said, she's so smart, knowing when she's in foul trouble, how to play, maximize her role on the floor, and avoid picking up a 3rd or 4th foul.
Well, and Connecticut continuing to change up defense. And again, Florida State running their offense 20, 22 feet beyond the rim. They've got to find a way to attack the Connecticut defense.
Clayton hits the side of the backboard. That shot partially deflected, and they'll say it's out off of Clayton. I agree with Sue Semrau. It's hard to believe that that ball wasn't tipped and came off that ugly from the hand of Clayton, hit the side of the backboard.
And now Florida State changing up their defense as well. Maya Moore's out of the ball game. They're going to go to a zone, try to shore up that paint.
There's the high-low pass from McLaren inside. Charles misses it first. Now a chance for a 3-point play.
And Tina Charles stays with it. But perfect execution offensively of attacking the zone. We saw Connecticut working on this in shoot-around today. Look at where what's open. The middle of the zone. The high post is open. Brings the back up. And again, you have the high-low opportunity. Good high-low execution, and Tina Charles stays with it.
Sierra Brevard called for her first foul. And UConn up by double figures. Every win during the 75-game win streak has been by double figures. And it goes to Brevard. Gets the bounce.
A tough shot by Sierra Brevard. The fadeaway, good touch. But Florida State's got to find a way to continue to get it into the paint. It forces the defense to be aware and collapse.
Charles again a chance for a 3-point play as she walled off Sierra Brevard and muscled her way to the goal.
Well, this is where we see Tina Charles really grow in working early, doing her work early, getting good position, finishing strong with the contact.
UConn's last loss was to Stanford in the 2008 Final Four. It was Tina Charles' sophomore season. Here's what Gino Auriemma told his All-American after that loss.
Tina Charles, we're going to either win the NCAA championship or we're going to lose the NCAA championship, and it's all going to be because of you. If we lose it, it's because you stunk. If we win it, it's going to be because you made it happen for us. And to her credit, she responded like I had hoped a great player would respond.
Did she ever respond? After Gina Auriemma threw down that gauntlet, here is the way that Tina Charles responded the next time she was in the same position.
Well, Tina Charles has the ability to have a double-double night in and night out, and I think one of the areas that she's really grown the most is in the mental toughness, the preparation, the understanding that you have to play hard at every single moment in the ball game. She understands that now. She's grown, and that's why we have seen her numbers increase and her dominate in her senior season.
Offensive rebound by Jacinta Monroe.
Jacinta Monroe.
Charles has it knocked away by Monroe. Ward, quick pull-up, knocks down a three.
Three-point basket.
Courtney Ward, opportunistic, when to push it, when not to push it. The junior, Sue Summerall says she's the floor general. She's got to lead our team. We will go as she goes.
Charles catches inside, loses it out of bounds, and the confidence starts to grow a bit for Florida State.
Yeah, good defensive sequence turns into offense for Florida State. They push the ball in transition. Courtney Ward eyes up her defender and lets it fly.
And remember what Rebecca Lobo said. If you look at the example of Stanford leading against UConn for the longest period of time any team has led against UConn this season, it was when they got Maya Moore into foul trouble and when she was on the bench. There's no question this game has changed with Maya Moore on the bench.
Well, and Rebecca also tweeted not to underestimate the Seminoles. If they get their three-point shot going, it could be close.
Alicia Harvin does just that. It's a one-possession game again.
And Alicia Harvin has been big for Florida State, especially in the first half. They need some offensive production.
Elena Green left wide open, a defensive breakdown for the Seminoles, and there's an answer from a first-team All-Big East performer.
Big East tournament most outstanding player, and that's how Connecticut just continues to kill you, because if it's not one, it's another, and Jacinta Monroe has an answer at that high post.
6 points now for Monroe. Tina Charles steps outside and hits a jumper.
Tina Charles.
And Tina Charles very selective about when she does shoot that shot, but she knows Maya Moore is on the bench in foul trouble. She has to step up. She knocks it down.
UConn sinks back into a 2-3 zone again. State outscoring UConn by a pair since Maya Moore sat down, trying to extend that advantage, down by 6.
Well, it's important for Florida State to make some three-point shots, but they can't settle for always taking long jump shots against that zone.
With the left hand, Tina Charles right around Jacinta Monroe.
The patience of Tina Charles. She put it on the floor the play before, and Sierra Brevard got a hand on it this time. She knows where the defense is. She's very patient with the basketball. You can see her eyeing up the defenders right now. She does such a good job of getting position. Patience, patience. She sees it coming, pulls it up, and finishes with the left hand. But that's where you see the evolution of Tina Charles and the mental aspect of her game.
Thursday night, ESPN delivers more men's college basketball action. First at 7 Eastern, it's the NIT Championship game from the Garden. And then at 9 Eastern, the 22nd annual State Farm College Slam Dunk and Three-Point Championship. That's Thursday night. Men's college basketball on ESPN. Rebecca Lobo has more on Tina Charles.
You guys talk about Tina's transformation over the course of her career. It wasn't always easy. She was telling us there were times in her freshman and sophomore year where she would call home crying to her mother, who would say to her, if you couldn't do it, he put you through it. She has grown up so much over the past couple of years, and earlier this season when UConn played Florida State December 28th, Coach Auriemma benched Tina a little bit in the first half because he didn't like her effort. She came out and had a terrific second half. We asked him, have you had to do that since that Florida State game? No, this is a player who's learned and has grown and is playing pretty well here so far.
Harvin too strong. Jacinta Monroe fouled on the putback attempt, but Gina Auriemma told us in a game earlier this season that the only player other than Rebecca Lobo that he has been harder on during her career is Tina Charles.
Well, and Tina Charles has responded to the challenge, but Gino Auriemma knows how to push his players, knows how to get the full potential of his players, and they respond to his challenges.
Monroe, a 74% free throw shooter. Tina Charles, you can see the turnaround, especially at the free throw line. Her numbers have gone way up as she has become now a two-time first-team All-American.
So much of this game is about mental toughness and being able to push yourself to a new level, and I think that's the biggest growth that we've seen in Tina Charles. She was talented as a freshman, she was talented as a sophomore, but she has really grown in the mental aspect of her basketball game.
Kylie McLaren catches it underneath. Monroe comes over, gets the block, and out of bounds.
Good
off
help
of Florida
side.
State.
Jacinta Monroe can see her teammates pinned. She comes from the weak side, gets a hand on the ball. Sue Semrau talked about Jacinta Monroe, her defensive presence.
Quick release from the corner with the shot clock winding down. Tiffany Hayes can't hit. Charles runs it down in the corner and saves it.
And those are the little things that Connecticut does. Tina Charles doesn't get it, but tips it out, runs after it, loose balls, hustle plays, the little things.
Hayes squeezes it up off the window somehow and gets the roll. Arvin tries to answer quickly, spins wildly, and traveling is caught. Tina Charles and Maya Moore so far have carried UConn.
Well, Tina Charles gets it done on both ends, defensively setting the tone and offensively going to work. UConn's pulling away.
All right, Trey, thanks very much. Congratulations to Steve Lavin as well. We will miss him. And Connecticut leads the all-time series between these two teams 5-0. They did play earlier on this season. 78-59 was the final score in Tallahassee back on the 28th of December. Clayton off a steal. Can't get the finger roll to go. You have to make those shots if you're going to beat UConn.
You sure do.
But that game was a little closer than the final score indicated. Maybe it's something that gives Florida State a boost of confidence tonight.
I think it certainly does. I think so many times when teams step on the floor against Connecticut, they're beat before they even start the tip because it's a mental challenge. And Florida State, knowing that they played with them and knowing that they had an opportunity to see what they bring on a game basis, I think it certainly helps mentally.
Rebecca Lobo has more.
Well, Steph, I was struck by Florida State's shoot-around this afternoon, how loose and confident they were. And I talked to some of the players about the first time they played UConn, and Alicia Harvin said, you know, the last times we played them, things didn't go our way, but it didn't tear us down. It motivated us. It really helps that we're getting a chance to play them again. And Jacinta Monroe played with 3 of the UConn players this past summer with USA Basketball, and she says, I don't see them as machines like some other people do. I see them as people, and they are a really confident group here today.
And with all that, they're still down by 9 with Maya Moore on the bench with 2 fouls. Charles finds Doty on a cut. Kylie McLaren an offensive rebound and a kick out. Fresh shot clock for the Huskies.
And the 7th offensive rebound for Connecticut. Florida State, they're forcing other people besides Tina Charles and Maya Moore certainly on the bench with 2 fouls to take shots, but they're not securing the rebound.
This time Jacinta Monroe does just that. Monroe lets a jumper fly. Way off the mark. Tiffany Hayes floats over Clayton.
So we've seen Tiffany Hayes attack early off of the dribble. One of the things that makes this team so special is that anybody can step up at any given moment.
Ward to pull up. That's way off the mark again. An air ball that floats out of bounds. And the field has been set for the Frozen Four. Tune in Thursday, April 8th for a national semifinal doubleheader on ESPN2 HD. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern when RIT takes on Wisconsin. They will face off in Detroit. For live stats and game recaps for all rounds of every championship, go to NCAA.com, the official online home for all 88 NCAA championships. Gardler just checked in. Feeds it inside to Hayes, who dribbles it out of trouble with 7 on the shot clock. Gardler looks up, sees the shot clock, and then shuffles her feet.
Sierra Brevard doing a good job of being physical with Tina Charles down low, really trying to force her off of the block, not allow her to get that low post position.
UConn barely averages more than 14 turnovers a game, so they're certainly ahead of their normal pace, although Florida State has missed their last 6 field goal attempts. A big reason why this lead is back to double figures. Brevard has trouble with the dribble, blocked by Charles, taken by Gardler.
Every shot that Florida State is taking, their jump shots, their off-balance shots, or their long shots, they've got to find a way, again, attack the paint, and it's forcing the defense to shift. You're not going to get a one-pass entry into the post offensive look.
Lobbed into Charles, right around Sierra Brevard, who was out of position.
Done a great job of going to get that basketball by Tina Charles. She gets good position and goes to save the pass.
Deluzio, wild shot, and draws the foul. Tina Charles with 11 in double figures for the 35th time this year.
You see Tina Charles working for that low post position. It's a good pass by Hayes, throwing it to the high hand, and Tina Charles goes to get it.
She was inducted into the Huskies of Honor earlier this season, only the second active player to ever be inducted. Normally, all the other players that have been inducted have left school and come back for a special day, but last season, UConn surprised Renee Montgomery with her induction on a day she didn't expect it, and this year they did the same with Tina Charles.
For Florida State, for Sierra Brevard.
Harvard back in for Brevard. So a smaller lineup on the floor now for Florida State. And still Maya Moore sits with 2 fouls. But the lead's still double digits. A turnover, miscommunication, and Christian Honeycutt catches the Doty pass and goes coast to coast.
And that's what Florida State's got to be able to do. If they get Connecticut to turn the basketball over, they've got to find a way to make them pay. Take advantage of those opportunities.
Gino Auriemma calls a timeout.
Connecticut, a 30-second timeout.
And Caroline Doty was looking for the curl off of that screen, and Kalena Green didn't go, but Honeycutt does a good job of turning defense into offense. Florida State's going to need more of that.
Well, of course, Gino Auriemma is a perfectionist. He calls that timeout to read the riot act to his team. And the reason he is a perfectionist is because his team has been perfect. By the numbers, it's amazing. The smallest margin of victory is 10. So all 75 wins have been by double figures in all of the second half minutes that they've played. And coming into tonight, 1,500 minutes they've played of second half basketball. They've been behind a total of 3.5 minutes.
And they have gone 226 straight games of holding opponents under 50% from the field. So not only do they find ways to score points offensively, but defensively they lock it down as well.
Jacinta Monroe was able to tip that from behind away from Kayla Green. Monroe faces up around Charles with the reverse. It won't go. And Tina Charles another rebound. Hayes from the corner. Too strong. A foul called against Megan Gardler. Maya Moore has 2 fouls. She's on the bench. Gino Auriemma's team not pulling away yet from Florida State.
There is timeout on the floor.
All right, Trey Wingo, thanks very much. The 2 franchise players have combined for most of the offense tonight for UConn. Charles and Moore with 22 of UConn's 35, but with Maya Moore, Stephanie White on the bench with 2 fouls. Granted, Florida State has not cut significantly into the lead. For the most part, it's been double figures, but what we've seen so far in the tournament is UConn blows teams' doors off and the game's over at halftime. And the one effect that Maya Moore being out of the game has had is the blowout hasn't happened, at least Florida State is hanging around and gaining confidence as the game goes on.
Well, and Florida State's doing a terrific job defensively. They've forced 8 Connecticut turnovers. They've got 10 points off of those turnovers. So you've got to be able to take advantage of those sorts of situations. Now you're in the penalty opportunity. You have to be able to attack the rim, try to get yourself easy buckets, break down defense, get free throw opportunities. But you got to convert them.
A break, though, for Florida State. Tiffany Hayes gets tied up with Alexa DeLuzio. And Gino Auriemma is now going jacket-free. I think that's the first time we've seen that so far this season in the NCAA tournament. On the drive, Ward. Tipped out of bounds by Jacinta Monroe.
And I like Courtney Ward attacking the rim. If she doesn't get that layup or doesn't go in, what happens is it forces the defense to rotate. It leaves an opening for Jacinta Monroe to crash the offensive glass. And now Florida State coming with the 1-3-1.
Into the post it goes. And again, it's Tina Charles. Boy, patient ball movement. Eventually, Charles gets free inside, and now UConn picks up with some pressure of their own. Nice behind-the-back move by Courtney Ward. Honeycutt gets caught, trapped in the corner, needs to call a timeout.
It's a good trap. Honeycutt didn't have anywhere to go. You can't pick up your dribble right there in the short corner. But let's watch the offensive execution for Connecticut. They're breaking this 1-3-1. Look at Tina Charles. See how deep in the middle of the paint she is? She doesn't start posting when the ball's on the wing. She starts posting when the ball's on the way off the reversal. That's doing her work early.
Only 3 rebounds away from a double-double here in the first half. And the Final Four is coming up this weekend. The NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One on Sunday night. Our 2 national semifinals at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Coverage begins at 6:30 Eastern with the NCAA Women's Final Four special. ESPN is your exclusive home for the NCAA Women's Championship. And outside of UConn, you'd have to say the Huskies are headline #1. Headline #2 so far in the tournament as a whole, and certainly at the Final Four will be Brittany Griner.
Well, Brittany Griner, we have just seen her continue to grow throughout the season. She's been a dominating presence on both ends. A lot of fun to watch for Kim Mulkey's young team, the way they've come together.
Traveling called on Sierra Brevard. 6th turnover for Florida State. And with more, here's Rebecca.
Well, guys, we saw the replay of Tina Charles working hard and finishing. But what sometimes gets lost is what a good passing team Connecticut is. They do a tremendous job of getting the ball into the post, even from a big like Kylie McLaren. This is a team right now on 14 baskets, 10 of them are assisted.
And I think that also speaks to the discipline of this Connecticut team to play within this system. You don't see players going off one-on-one opportunities unless it's opportunistic.
Sierra Brevard called for team foul #7 on Florida State. Her second personal. 2-shot foul as Tina Charles goes to the line. The #1 all-time scorer and #1 all-time rebounder in UConn history. And she has added to those numbers in the tournament. She broke both UConn career records in the same game. In our last big Monday game of the season against Notre Dame.
You don't need it.
DeLuzio, a floater. Another rebound for Charles. Quick outlet. Helena Green back to Doty. Charles hits the side of the backboard, gets her own miss. Doty for 3. Honeycutt the rebound. Nice hands by Charles. She causes the turnover, and Helena Green cruises in for the easy 2.
It's the little things. Tina Charles gets herself another opportunity, getting a hand on the ball, and Connecticut coming with the pressure. So much of the pressure is not necessarily just taking time off the clock or just forcing you to pass the ball. It's rushing you into quick shots. It's dictating what you do offensively by their defense. One of the best things Connecticut team does is they initiate on the defensive end.
Another takeaway. This time it's the freshman Kelly Farris. She traveled though.
And the turnovers for scores. You looked at the last matchup against these two teams. Connecticut got 26 points off of turnovers, and you're going to see right here Tina Charles getting herself back in the play. Kalena Green pushing, transition offense, the open court where Connecticut can be so dangerous.
Florida State could find a way just to get a couple of buckets before halftime and make it a 10-point game at the break. Deep it gets to Monroe. She comes up short and then commits the foul. And Tina Charles will shoot free throws at the other end.
Well, Jacinta Monroe gets good low post position right there. It really doesn't know where the rim is in regards to that position. Those are shots she's got to be able to finish, and then a frustration foul on the end of it. But Florida State's just really out of sync offensively. They're rushing into quick shots. They're turning the ball over. They're playing without a purpose. And one of the things that Sue Semrau said, we've got to be able to get great shots, not just good shots. But they've got to be offensively in some sort of sync and in some sort of flow, and credit the Connecticut defense.
Well, that last shot qualifies as a great one. And you've got your center, who's your leading scorer, right underneath the basket. And she short arms a little baby hook and then commits her second foul, which forces Sue Semrau to take her out of the game. And now instead of cutting the lead down to 12, and maybe if you get a stop, you get it to 10 at halftime, it's a quick 4-point turnaround, and UConn is up by 16. Ward attacks, and check foul called on Kelly Farris. Ward at the free throw line.
Connecticut foul, number 34, Kelly Farris, her first, team's 8th.
A 1-and-1 for Courtney Ward.
Shooting 1-and-1.
Second team all ACC in double figures 23 times this season. 16th in the country in assists. And an 81% free throw shooter that can't hit, but then cleaning up on the offensive glass was Chelsea Davis.
And Florida State's getting ample opportunity at the foul line. You've got to take advantage. You've got to be able to knock those down just like the Bunnies. They've got to be able to finish from the free throw line.
Charles lost it. Tiffany Hayes blocked underneath. And a chance to hold for one for Florida State. 13 seconds to go in the first half. Down to 8 seconds to go. Ward eyes up Hayes. It's a three. Way off the mark. And out of bounds.
And I think you've got to be the aggressor. You've got opportunities. You're in the penalty right now. If you're Florida State settling for too many jump shots, they've got to be able to attack off the dribble.
Hayes, good if it goes. Comes up just short. Florida State hangs in there for a fair portion of the first half, but they're still down by 14 at halftime. Jacinta Monroe, a decent first half, 7 points and 7 rebounds, but Tina Charles better, and here's Rebecca.
Coach, Connecticut shooting 48% with Maya Moore on the bench for much of that half. What do you have to do to slowly chip away to this lead in the second half?
Well, we've missed so many easy shots, even free throws. You know, we've got to hit shots and obviously do a better job on the boards.
All right, Coach, thank you. Bob.
All right, Rebecca, thanks very much. A double-double in the first half for Tina Charles. 16 points, 11 rebounds. And UConn has the 14-point lead. Now it's time to go back to Trey Wingo with Kara and the coach. The Home Depot halftime report.
Top of the world. Yeah. I'm taking over the world.
Welcome back to the NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One. Just about set for the start of the second half between UConn and Florida State. The winner goes to San Antonio in the Final Four, and the #1 overall seed up by double figures once again. Baba Susan and Stephanie White along with Rebecca Lobo here. 2 fouls in the first half for Maya Moore. She only played 7 minutes, but as we go inside the play, Tina Charles seemed to pick up the slack.
She did. Tina Charles went to work, and we're going to see her doing work work early, the offensive execution for Connecticut. Watch this, if we freeze it right there, look, she knows the pass is going to be made to the wing. She does her work early, gets good position so the ball can go inside. Finishes strong. It's good passing on the perimeter and a great job of Tina Charles of getting good position early.
And Charles gets good position early again, finds Moore cutting, plus the foul. So Maya Moore, 2 fouls in the first half, played only 7 minutes, but she goes right to work to start off the second half.
Well, and Tina Charles commands so much of the defense's attention that Maya Moore, the little back screen, finishing strong. But Maya Moore started off the first half and certainly started off the second half coming out aggressive on the offensive end.
Well, the good news for Florida State was that unlike the other opponents that Maya Moore and UConn have faced so far this season, UConn didn't pull away in the first half. A lot had to do with the fact that Maya Moore was in foul trouble. But the bad news is, even with Moore out of the game, they were down by 14 at halftime, and now Moore scores the first 5 points of the second half.
And Connecticut picking up that defensive pressure, dictating what Florida State's doing on the offensive end. They've got to take good care of the basketball.
Arvin scores the first points of the second half for Florida State. Moore fades away. Jacinta Monroe, a jumper, too strong. Caroline Doty the rebound.
And to me, that's settling right there. Jacinta Monroe can go to work against Tina Charles or kick it back out, get good position, but settling for a face-up jump shots.
Let's head over to Rebecca Lobo.
So guys, Coach Auriemma's demeanor coming out of the halftime was of a man who's won 75 in a row and he's up 14. He was really calm. He said, we were a little rushed, a little fast in that first half, and Florida State with some offensive rebounds, and he said, we have to hit some shots from the outside. Then he smiled and said, but when I put Maya Moore in, that'll change everything, guys. 4 of 5 in 7 minutes in that first half for Maya Moore.
It did not take long, Rebecca, for that to take effect. Immediately making her presence felt in the second half. Maya Moore, the first 5 points scored.
Well, there's something to be said when the coach can trust the fact that your best player is going to come to work. She's going to make an impact regardless. When your best player is your hardest worker, it sets the tone for everybody else.
Azapula. Monroe off the mark again. Offensive rebound, though, inside by Gray. Shut down by Moore. Doty goes to the deck to try and save it. It goes back over to Florida State, though.
Good defensive stance right here for Connecticut, and Caroline Doty loses it. Florida State getting another opportunity, and Sue Semrau, talking to Courtney Ward, is talking about not wanting to pass the ball up in transition. She wants to attack it off the dribble, and Jacinta Monroe off the glass.
9 points now for Jacinta Monroe. Lauren Dixon on for Caroline Doty for the first time. Deluzio comes to help. And a foul on Deluzio before the shot. No, they'll call a traveling violation instead on Tina Charles before the foul.
And Tina Charles was asking for the basketball offensively. She got it on the low block. Try to go to work against the double team.
Brevard blocked again by Charles. Outlets to Tiffany Hayes. And she finishes.
In transition, where Connecticut is so dangerous, Tina Charles uses her size and athleticism to get a hand on that. And again, defense creating offense for Connecticut.
You have to like the decision, as you were talking about, to go into the post and attack, but you'd think it would be more going to Jacinta Monroe than Sierra Brevard.
And it doesn't always have to be off of the initial pass in offense. The ball has to reverse. You have to force the defense to shift. Make Tina Charles come from help side, pin her down low.
Wow. 19 points now for Maya Moore. And a timeout called by Florida State.
Maya Moore continuing to be in the zone. The confidence that she's playing with right now. And mom's loving what she's seeing as UConn's 20.
The NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One. A 20-point lead here in Dayton for UConn, trying to get to their 11th Final Four. And Maya Moore, dominant so far in the second half.
Well, she came out with the hot hand, established herself early. Went on the bench in the first half with 2 fouls, but has come out equally as hot in the second half. 19 points in 10 minutes for Maya Moore. And I talked to Gino Ariema about Maya Moore today and just asked her where she ranks when it comes to great players that he's played or that he's coached. And he said, you know, the 2 toughest competitors that I've ever had are Jen Rosati and Maya Moore. He said the kid's lost 2 games her entire career. I don't measure Maya Moore's accomplishments by her numbers. I measure it in wins and losses. And when it comes to wins and losses, she's right there with Diana Taurasi as one of the greatest.
Well, if you combine her numbers from Sunday against Iowa State, here in the Dayton Regional, she has 44 points in 30 total minutes of playing time. Ray looks up, sees the shot clock down at 10, finds DeLuzio, too strong on the baseline. And a foul will be called against Jacinta Monroe. And Rebecca's taking us beyond the game this year. Follow Rebecca Lobo on her Twitter throughout the tournament for fun, real-time behind-the-scenes access. Don't miss her regular feature as well. Rebecca Lobo's 5 questions at ESPN.com. Keyword Rebecca Lobo.
I like Rebecca's last tweet using the MASH analogy.
Third foul called on Jacinta Monroe. She stays on the floor with 3 fouls. As Green hits, what other choice do you have? If you're Sue Semrau, you can't take Jacinta Monroe out down 20.
No, Jacinta Monroe has to stay in the ball game. She's got to play smart on the defensive end.
Brevard tries again, and again she turns it over.
Well, I think that's a situation where Florida State wants to establish something in the post, but Sierra Brevard, if she doesn't have it right away, kick it out, reverse the ball, reestablish, and then go to work on the reversal.
Just as we say that, Monroe does sit down as Alicia Harvin comes back on, maybe through the media timeout. Lobbed inside to Charles. Again, she gets great position and beats Sierra Brevard.
And again, you see Tina Charles just continuing to go to work down low. She gets such terrific low post position. All she has to do is turn and score.
DeLuzio, air ball. Hayes with a rainbow 3 in and out. The back tap ends up with Dixon. She lost her balance. And in transition, and she scores.
Passed it by Alicia Harvin.
Good job of running the floor. Alicia Harvin able to finish that in Florida State. Playing this zone.
Elena Green left alone.
And it's the same spot. Elena Green shoots up into the gap against the zone. That's twice that Elena Green has gotten that same opportunity.
11 now for Kalena Green, and we've got a timeout on the floor.
Tina Charles and Maya Moore have done what they do best and dominate the basketball game.
Wingo here. Don't forget, after this game is over, Abby Olajuwon, averaging 18 and 10 in the tournament, leads Oklahoma as they take on Kentucky. Winner goes to the Final Four from the Kansas City region. Let's go back to Dayton. Bob Wischusen, slow start for the Huskies to start the half.
Yeah, Trey, they're struggling offensively, certainly, as the Huskies. It seems like their trip to the Final Four almost a foregone conclusion. Awaiting them, though, will be Brittany Griner. The Baylor Lady Bears get the near triple from Griner, and they are able to advance to the Final Four. Stanford with the coast-to-coast buzzer beater by Poland. Disappointing Xavier, to say the least, and UConn looking for their 11th Final Four. It would be their 3rd in a row. And Maya Moore, if she is able to win the national championship this year and again next season, you really start to talk about history then. Moore would put her name in the history books alongside names like Taurasi and Bird and that group that won 3 national championships during their amazing run at UConn.
Well, I think when you look at Maya Moore's career, and just like Gino Ariema said, the kid has been a part of this team that's lost 2 games her entire career. She leads every day by her example, her work ethic, her passion. And Kalena Green continues to be perfect from the floor, 6 for 6. But she has elevated her game at tournament time, and you continue to see the best players peak when it matters most. And for Maya Moore, that's right now in the NCAA tournament.
Another pass broken up by Green. Dixon able to break free.
And Connecticut has come out this second half and defensively played at a different level from an energy standpoint. They're pressuring the basketball. They're in passing lanes. They're in a stance. They're making a statement on the defensive end of the floor.
Another block inside as Moore got a piece, as did Charles. Charles saves it. Green a pull-up. That's blocked from behind by Alicia Harbin, but Harbin is called for the foul.
Florida State foul number 2, Alicia Harbin.
It seems like we are 13 minutes and 54 seconds away from UConn being in the Final Four. 3 spots will be handed out, and we will find out who will get spot number 4 after we're done here in Dayton. And the Final Four comes your way on ESPN at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Sunday, the NCAA Women's Championship presented by Capital One. Coverage begins on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern with the NCAA Women's Final Four special.
00, Chastity Clayton, and 50, Jacinta Monroe. Check in for Alicia Harbin and Chelsea Davis.
Kalena Green last season only averaged about 8.5 points a game, up to nearly 12 a game this season.
Also returning,
having a terrific senior year.
Well, and Kalena Green in the NCAA tournament thus far only averaging just a little over 7 points a game. And we talked about her in the Open, about her ability to put points on the board. She hasn't yet, but she certainly has made a statement tonight.
UConn up by 30, and there's still a very good chance that Florida State could end up giving UConn the best game anyone in the tournament has given them so far, as their smallest margin of victory through the first 3 rounds was their Sweet 16 win on Sunday over Iowa State by 38. Maya Moore, 2 more.
And that's the thing about Maya Moore. Defensively on the other end, they're up by 30. She's continuing to hustle after loose balls, getting a hand on it. She's the first one down in transition offense. She's playing as if they are down in this second half. And that's the kind of effort and intensity that this what separates this Connecticut team from everybody else.
Monroe is fouled by Tina Charles.
Watch Maya Moore. If you can see her, I don't know if we can see her in the background, but watch how hard she's running the floor. Tiffany Hayes, heads up play. So dangerous in the open court.
Back in lineup for Florida.
7 minutes played in each half, double figures in each half, and only 3 field goal misses. She has been unconscious in the postseason so far. And already her 16th game this season, over 20 points scored. Harris lobs it inside. Moore can't make the catch. Take it away by Chastity Clayton. Traveling called on Clayton.
And there's Maya Moore on the defensive end, forcing a turnover.
Sue Semrau's got the same look on her face that each of the other coaches that we have seen so far in the tournament and all season when they play. You have no answer.
Well, and Connecticut does such a good job of taking you out of anything that you want to do offensively with their defensive pressure. Nice job. Tiffany Hayes doing such a good job of attacking the paint. She got a couple of scores doing that same thing in the first half. This time, the defensive rotation, she finds her teammate.
Now, Tina Charles is over 20 as well.
That's what happens on this replay. We're going to see the help side. come over Jacinta Monroe, but there's no weak side drop.
The turnaround by Monroe. Can't get the roll. Moore boxes out inside. One All-American to the other. Charles, the miss. Moore, the follow. And she'll go to the free throw line.
Maya Moore gets the box out and defensive rebound on one end. The entry pass, the shot goes up, and the offensive rebound on another end.
Gray called for her third. And you could see the look on Maya Moore's face after she missed that shot, which obviously she thought she should have made, and that this should be an and one. And still kind of scolding herself at the free throw line. This team somehow finds a way to mentally get itself to a place where they play possessions as if they're down by 2. It's almost as if they don't know that the scoreboard exists. It's hard to believe they don't look up occasionally and realize we're up 30. But the intensity never dips. Maybe they're afraid of what he's going to tell them in a film section if their intensity does dip.
That could be too, because they're certainly going to see the mistakes that they make. But, you know, Gino Ariema told us, he said, we make mistakes, we just hide it better than everybody else. And they're able to hide it because of their effort, because of their intensity, possession by possession. And Maya Moore told us too, we don't play the scoreboard. We can't play the scoreboard. We play for each other. We raise each other's level of intensity by doing it by example every single day.
Monroe attacks Kylie McLaren and scores.
First shot by Jacinta Monroe, and she has that ability to put the ball on the floor. I think she should use that more often, especially when she gets the ball at the high post.
McLaren loses it. Will step aside.
Maya Moore, you can see the intensity and the frustration. They're up 30, but she knows she should have made that bucket.
All right, Trey, thanks very much. And back to work, the UConn Huskies picking up full court pressure, or at least modified full court pressure, up 69-38. Approaching 11 minutes to go, and UConn will be heading to the Final Four in San Antonio in a matchup on Sunday night with Brittany Griner and Baylor. No doubt the Kim Mulkey's group probably watching right now. Knocked away by Honeycutt. And Honeycutt tries to track it down in the corner. Bodies all over the place. So far in the NCAA tournament, UConn obviously adding a 75-game win streak. They've won by an average of 49 points per game. And this leads to kind of a nationwide discussion once women's basketball comes to the tournament and UConn takes center stage of, is their dominance good for the women's game? Stephanie White.
We wouldn't be talking about it. I mean, everybody that is not a women's basketball fan that is discussing whether or not Connecticut is good for the game or not is somebody who wouldn't even be speaking about women's basketball. So the fact that it bars a discussion shows that it is good. It's the challenge of everybody else to reach the level of excellence that Connecticut has done it. Why have they done it? Because they pay attention to detail, because they don't settle, because they push each other every single day in practice. It's a mentality that has not everything to do with the skill level of each individual player, but with the mentality of an entire team.
And Rebecca Lobo helped build this program into what it is. And Rebecca, I know you have some thoughts about what we're watching Tiffany Hayes and UConn do.
Yeah, Bob, I kind of think it's a stupid debate. I think it's a little bit gender-driven. This isn't a discussion that was being had when UCLA had their dominance, when the Celtics had their dynasties, or when the Patriots were going undefeated a few years ago. And frankly, I don't think it's a debate in the women's basketball community. I think it's been a little bit contrived by columnists, and they're trying to keep the discussion going. But within basketball, it's not something that we ever talk about. It's not something that real women's basketball fans ever talk about. It's kind of the casual observer who's just looking for something to say.
Well, Gino Ariema had some thoughts. He spoke with Mark Schwartz about exactly this topic.
I don't think there's one person at ESPN or in the NCAA or anywhere, any place, that is jumping up and down saying, I hope Connecticut wins the national championship. Not a single one.
Why are so few people rooting for Gino Auriemma in Connecticut?
Because they're sick of us winning all the time. They would love somebody step up and smack these guys, would you please? That, I think, is what motivates us now.
I think he's right, and I think the fact that he's right is a reason why this isn't a bad thing for women's basketball or sports in general. I think the American public likes to watch history made, and they also like to root against the favorite. So there's probably, like in men's basketball, as so often seems to be the case with Duke, a hatred of UConn out there that's probably a healthy dislike. As Hayes goes coast to coast off another turnover. And there are probably just as many golf fans that root against Tiger Woods as for him, because they're rooting for someone to rise up and challenge him. And I think the point that a lot of folks have made, which I think is a good one, is UConn's dominance brings the casual sports fan that might not care a whole heck of a lot about women's basketball to the women's game because they want to see this team play.
Well, and like Rebecca said, I mean, gender-driven. They don't say Tiger Woods is bad for golf. But the challenge is for every kid that's out there watching the way that Connecticut plays. They want to see the high-flying, acrobatic, but the fundamental way that Connecticut approaches the game, and you can see it right there. Anyone but UConn, everybody wants somebody to knock them off. Gino Auriemma is certainly right about that, but you don't see the day-to-day preparation that these players put in, the day-to-day preparation that somebody like Tiger Woods puts in. That's what gets them to this point. They don't just show up at Connecticut and win. They do the work that it takes to be successful.
An amazing talent.
Yeah, you certainly have to have amazing talent, but you hone that talent with a work ethic and a desire to be the best, and a head coach that won't allow them to settle for anything less than their best.
And there are a lot of sports fans out there that might not know much, if anything, about women's basketball, but they all know UConn. And I have a hard time believing that that's bad for the sport.
It sure isn't.
Elena Green. Foul on the offensive end before the pass on Kalena Green. Thursday night, ESPN delivers more men's college basketball action. First at 7 Eastern, it's the championship game of the NIT from the Garden. And then at 9 Eastern, the 22nd annual State Farm College Slam Dunk and Three-Point Championship. More men's action on Thursday night on ESPN.
For the Huskies, for Caroline Doty.
Caroline Doty goes to the bench. Kelly Farris back on. Lauren Dixon in as well as Tiffany Hayes sits down. Gino Auriemma this year was named Big East Co-Coach of the Year. He has won or shared that title 9 times in his 25 years at UConn. Ward can't hit a three. Farris the rebound. Moore for three. Off the mark. And a foul called on Kelly Farris. 7 minutes and 42 seconds away from the 11th Final Four in UConn history. And who's waiting? The story in women's college basketball besides UConn. We'll talk Brittany Griner next.
Victoria Dunlap getting set for Kentucky and Oklahoma, the SEC Player of the Year. They square off in the Kansas City Regional Final. Winner goes to the Final Four. Now let's go back to Dayton. Bob Wischusen and Stephanie White.
And Rebecca Lobo with us here as well. Trey, thanks very much. 76-38, the #1 seed in the tournament. Looking very much like it against Florida State here in the Elite Eight. A foregone conclusion now that UConn is heading to the Final Four, and Baylor, having pulled off the win against Duke, beating the top 2 seeds in their bracket, getting to the Final Four. And they are going to be the next challenge for the Huskies.
The evolution of Brittany Griner from the beginning of the season when we saw her go in at Tennessee to where she is right now and how confident she's playing. How much more versatile she is on both ends of the floor. She has certainly gotten so much better from beginning of the season to the end of the season, and she's just a freshman.
Foul called underneath on Florida State. Well, Brittany Griner already has broken the record for most blocked shots in tournament history. It was a record that had been set over the course of 6 games. She broke it in 4. So if she finds a way to play 2 more games, she could end up almost doubling the previous record and almost a triple-double against Duke.
And she has the ability to dominate a game, and you can see almost, when you talk about almost having triple doubles, she can do that on any given night. And what Kim Mulkey has done with the young Baylor team and getting Melissa Jones back in the lineup from injury, they have really come together. And she said it last night in her quote with freshmen, they're going to make some great plays, and sometimes they're going to drive you crazy. But she has one special freshman in Brittany Griner.
Rebecca, do you think Brittany Griner can have enough of an impact on that game to keep Baylor in it and give them a chance to win?
Well, it's definitely going to be something fun to watch, because remember, one place where Connecticut is thin is at the post position coming off the bench. Kylie McLaren's the only player with size coming off the bench, and she's about 6'2". So if Brittany Griner can continue to play with the patience that she has, not get into foul trouble, she made some terrific finishes at the end of that game offensively yesterday. This is a player who can have a huge impact on a game, but remember, for her to get back defensively and block shots, she has to get back defensively, and Connecticut is so good at creating points off turnovers, and I think that'll be a big key in that game.
Harris with a takeaway. The hit ahead to Lauren Dixon. Can't finish. Gardler lost it out of bounds. Well, Brittany Griner and Maya Moore are probably the 2 stories of the tournament, at least in terms of their individual performances. Now look at the numbers that Moore's put up.
Well, Maya Moore has just been playing terrific basketball in the NCAA tournament. She's elevated her game. She's elevated her intensity level. She's a special player as well, but, you know, just to echo Rebecca's point, this is a Connecticut team that's very dangerous in the open court. You've got to be able to get back. But Baylor also has to be able to find a way to put a lot of points on the board, because defensively, just being good enough is not going to be good enough to beat Connecticut. You've got to find a way to score on the offensive end.
And I would think a huge factor in that game, a monumental factor, will be how it's officiated. Because the foul trouble, if there is some for Griner, or if she can find a way to get Tina Charles in foul trouble. And how physical do they allow the post players to play could, I think, determine the outcome of that game.
No question. And I think also the mentality. When you see so many teams come out against Connecticut and play on their heels, playing not to lose, as Lauren Dixon makes a nice move and finish on the other side. But you've got to come out and be the aggressor. You have to play to win. You can't allow them to get you on your heels. You got to be in attack mode. And Lauren Dixon taking the baseline on Jacinta Monroe. And then the elevation and finish on the other side.
She is a blur when she gets it going. Hard to find her out there as well. They list her as 5'4", but for Lauren Dixon, that might be the media guide height. I'm not sure she is 5'4" as Monroe hits.
Yeah, that might be the extra couple of inches that are added. A generous 5'4".
Doty overshoots it for Gardler. Monroe out of the double team, hits the rim trying to kick one to the corner to DeLuzio. Out of bounds off UConn with 18 to shoot. Sunday, tune into ESPN at 6:30 Eastern for our NCAA Final Four preview, followed by the NCAA Women's Championship semifinals. It's the Final Four in San Antonio. For live stats and game recaps from all rounds of every championship, go to ncaa.com. Honey cut too strong. A held ball keeps it with Florida State. Well, Sue Semrau's team, it's hard to not let a lopsided loss like this diminish what you've done, but it should not diminish what has been the best year in the history of Florida State women's basketball. Tied for first place in the ACC and their first ever Elite Eight. And DeLuzio hits.
And young players like DeLuzio who are getting this experience are able to step on the floor. Alicia Harvin and Jacinta Monroe and Angel Gray, the impact that they've had on this team, really taking this program to another level and using this experience to really propel them forward.
Offensive rebound by Farris. And she dribbles it out. Florida State loses Jacinta Monroe, but next year we'll add Natasha Howard, who we have as our ESPNU Top 100 second-ranked prospect in women's high school basketball. She's coming to Florida State. So they lose a big body, but they gain one with tremendous talent. So Sue Semrau should be able to keep it going next year in Tallahassee.
And Natasha Howard, an Ohio kid. Sue Semrau seems to grab a couple of these Ohioans.
Another takeaway. Farris then fouled by Monroe.
I love the way that Kelly Farris plays. She can come in and impact a ball game. We saw her score 16 points off of the bench Sunday against Iowa State and comes in and just goes about her business defensively, gets her hands on the ball, crashes the glass. Certainly plays her role.
A terrific career at Florida State for Jacinta Monroe has now come to an end. She has fouled out of her final game. She'll finish her career in the top 7 in school history in points and rebounds. But she'll have to watch from the bench the rest of the way.
Well, Jacinta Monroe, one of those players who has such a great size and ability to score down low, really changes the game on the defensive end as well. Was aggressive offensively here today and has helped put Florida State on the map.
An interesting player when you look at it from a WNBA perspective, as I know you do. I'm sure she'll be a draft choice, but she's raw in so many areas.
She is. She's a player who still has so much room to grow, especially on the offensive end. I mean, I think that defensively she's solid. She's been a stopper. She's been an anchor. But offensively continue to grow. It'd be nice to put on about 10 to 15 pounds on that frame, but certainly has a tremendous upside and tremendous ability.
I have the same problem. If only I could find a way to put on 15 pounds. Courtney Ward taken out as well by Sue Semrau. She's a junior, though, so the point guard will be back. Under 4 minutes to go. Quick trigger, no good by Harvin. And we'll step aside. 3 minutes and 53 seconds away from the 11th Final Four in UConn history.
In Kansas City, the final Final Four team will be decided. Will it be Kentucky, who's never been to the Final Four? Oklahoma, led by Danielle Robinson, their dynamic point guard. Kentucky has SEC Player of the Year, Victoria Dunlap. That's coming up after your game, Bob.
All right, Pam, thanks very much. So up next, the final spot in the Final Four determined between Kentucky and Oklahoma. Stephanie White, what do you think about that game?
Well, I think Kentucky certainly brings it on the defensive end. That is their identity. Victoria Dunlap used the summer to really make a commitment to getting herself in basketball shape, and it shows. SEC Player of the Year, but I love what Sherry Cole has done. In the absence of the Paris twins, Abby Olajuwon, another player who really got herself into shape, playing extremely well, and Danielle Robinson, the leader of that Sooner team, has done a tremendous job.
Speaking of doing a tremendous job, we wrap up the last 3 minutes and 15 seconds of UConn's latest, most dominant performance. Something the likes of which we've never seen in basketball, period, much less just women's basketball. As we take a look at our Capital One game track from tonight's game. Maya Moore, 22 points. Tina Charles, another double-double. Her 13th of the season. Jacinta Monroe fouls out with 15 points, but Florida State had no answers tonight. Not that anyone has had any answers for UConn.
Well, and in this second half, Connecticut really picked up the defensive intensity. They have 25 points off of turnovers up until this point, and you can see the statement that they made in this second stanza. I'm sure they were challenged in the locker room.
Florida State shooting 29% from the field right now, and that is just a tick below what UConn's season average has been defensively. #1 in America in opponent's field goal percentage of 30%. Doty has to force one up with the shot clock winding down. Deluzio turns it over. "76 consecutive wins for UConn when this one comes to an end. And the only streak that remains, the 88 by the Wizard of Westwood's UCLA Bruins as Doty hits a three. They have won every game by double figures. The average margin of victory will climb tonight above 26 points per game. And this will be the 26th ranked team that they will have beaten by an average of over 26 points per game.
The top 10 teams in the country, they beat by an average margin of 26 points per game. The standard of excellence that has been set by Connecticut on a day-to-day, game-to-game, possession-by-possession basis.
And let's check in with Rebecca.
Guys, at the end of this game, don't expect to see a lot of celebration from UConn. They won't cut down the nets because getting to the Final Four is not their goal. Kalani Green told me earlier today, it's always about a national championship or bust. Getting to the Final Four is not enough. We came here to win championships. Our standards are set higher. We are not complacent to make it Elite Eight, to make a Final Four. They only cut the nuts down if they win the national championship, guys.
Wow. It's kind of taken for granted that most teams, when they win their regional final, will cut the nets down in that spot before they go to the Final Four. I guess that says a lot about UConn that they'll buck that trend.
It says a lot about their level of expectation and what they hold themselves accountable to on a day-to-day basis.
So UConn certainly safe to move them to San Antonio in the Final Four, and only one spot remains. Coming up next, we will have the final between Kentucky and Oklahoma to see who will take on Stanford on Sunday in one of our two national semifinal games. But it will be UConn against Baylor. And for Connecticut, it's one thing to take out Southern, to take out Temple, even an Iowa State team that was good this year in the Big 12. But look what they're doing tonight to a Florida State team that was ranked for the most part in the top 15 all season. That went 12-2 in the ACC and tied Duke for first place in the conference. Their 3 seed was probably about as low as they should have been because they lost Jacinta Monroe to an ankle injury in their first round game in the ACC tournament and lost to Boston College. If this team hadn't lost that game or lost Monroe, they had a very good chance to be a 2 seed. And look at the numbers on the scoreboard.
I think when you talk about this Connecticut team and continuing to rise to the challenge, they don't play the scoreboards. They play to challenge themselves on a day-to-day basis. They play to play the perfect game.
Foul called against UConn, 22 points and 8 rebounds for Maya Moore. And we click it all the way up to 76 games in a row for the Lady Huskies. And our Coke Zero player of the game is, again, a first-team All-American, Maya Moore, for the 3rd straight year named first-team All-American today.
Christian Honeycutt, number 5. Courtney Ward, number 12, back in the game for the Seminoles.
And Alicia Harvin goes to the bench for the final time, the senior from Dania, Florida.
And Angel Gray as well. A chance for the seniors to get a curtain call.
Down to the final 45 seconds. Gardler hits a 3.
Three-point basket, Megan Gardler.
A breakup by Farris. Boy, they hit a 3. They're up 41, and still they get back in transition defense to break up the outlet pass.
Great hustle by Kelly Farris to get a hand on that ball.
Sierra Brevard fouled underneath by Heather Buck. Gardler hit the three, and here's a look at the UConn bench when it went through.
Well, this is a Connecticut team that, as we spoke with them earlier on Saturday, we're talking about the importance of everyone on this team and their role, and understanding from top to bottom how their role is impacted in this team, and appreciating what happens. And you can see that appreciation in cheering for their teammates. Everybody's a piece to the puzzle, and they all have to come together.
Caroline Doty, the sophomore point guard, can dribble it down. They might not be cutting down the nets, but they will celebrate, and the Husky fans here in Dayton will celebrate along with them. Finally a smile from the head coach. 37-0 on the season, 76 wins in a row. Their 11th Final Four and 3rd straight. Looking for back-to-back national championships. UConn is officially going to San Antonio.
They have certainly done it in dominating fashion. They've continued to rise to the challenge. Led by Maya Moore, their All-American.
So Connecticut and Baylor in one national semifinal on Sunday evening. Stanford awaits the winner of the next game and the final game in the Elite Eight. Coming up next, it's Kentucky and Oklahoma. And Rebecca Lobo standing by with her old coach.
Coach, in the last 4 games, Maya Moore is shooting 70% from the three-point line. How would you best describe the way she's played in this tournament?
Unconscious, you know, that's when Maya's at her best, is when she's unconscious. Unfortunately, you got to take 2 fouls in the first half all the time, too, because she's just playing. But as I said earlier, when she gets in those zones, it's just really hard to do anything with her, because she scores everywhere and every way, and it's just fun to watch. That's all I can say.
The player who's been most dominant defensively in this tournament is Brittany Griner. What are your thoughts on going against her and the Baylor Lady Bears?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think she's the most unique player in college basketball today. I don't think there's any one thing that you're going to be able to do and say, if we do this against Brittany Griner, then we'll be okay. I don't think that exists. So I need a couple days to think about it, but believe me, this is probably one of the hardest things that any coach probably has had to do that's gotten ready to play them, is figure out how to deal with her. And last part of the season, not too many people have been successful.
All right, Coach, thank you. Congratulations. Bob.
All right, Rebecca, so if anyone could be successful in that effort, you'd have to think it's Gino Auriemma, because he has this group going to San Antonio for the Final Four once again. Our final. Connecticut wins the Dayton Regional 90-50 over Florida State. Coming up next, one last ticket punch to San Antonio goes to either Kentucky or Oklahoma. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, and the exclusive home for the NCAA Women's Championship. For Stephanie White, Rebecca Lobo, I'm Bob Wischusen. So long from Dayton. Back to Trey Wingo in our studios. Trey?